It started when I was a child. My mother would always tell me, "Make sure to check for your shadow, sweetie. You don't want it trying to take your place." I thought it was just a silly thing she would say, like parents do, but she would remind me every time I left the house. As I get older, it became an odd habit that stuck with me. I would glance down to check for my shadow, to reassure myself that it was still following where I went. The first time something felt tough was the summer after I graduated high school. I was out late with friends and realized I had lost track of time. I started heading home, walking quickly through the dark, empty streets. A street light flickered above me and I paused, feeling a strange chill run down my spine. Almost nervously, I slowly looked down next to me. But there was nothing there. My shadow was gone. My heart beat faster as I told myself it was just a trick of the unreliable lighting. Still, I walked even faster towards home. I made it back safely that night. When I woke up the next morning, the uneasy feeling still gnawed at me. As the morning light streamed into my room, I tentatively peered over the edge of my bed to check the floor. I let out a huge sigh of relief when I saw the familiar dark silhouette there, back where it belonged. After that, I made sure to be more aware of my shadow's presence. Over the next couple years, there were a few more times when I would suddenly notice my missing shadow. Whenever it happened, I couldn't shake the sense that something felt horribly wrong. The hair on my arms and the back of my neck would stand up. It was as if I was being watched, haunted even. Every time, my shadow would reappear within a day, bringing me relief. But the episodes kept happening. I tried telling my friends about it, but they just gave me strange looks. They said it was impossible for shadows to just disappear or move about on their own. But my gut told me something sinister was going on. It was almost as if my shadow was trying to separate itself from me. But that couldn't be, could it? The thought terrified me. The most petrifying incident was when I was home alone on a weekend during a raging thunderstorm. The power had gone out earlier that evening. I lit some candles and tried to distract myself from the worrisome sight of trees thrashing about outside the windows. Eventually, I fell asleep curled up on the couch. A loud bang jolted me awake sometime later. Blurrily, I thought a tree branch must have hit the window. But then, I heard creaking footsteps creeping through the house. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. We didn't have a house alarm, so I grabbed the candlestick next to me, planning to use it as a weapon. I followed the ominous sounds into the hallway. My shaking candle flame created flickering shadows on the walls. Then, at the end of the hall, I saw the silhouette of a figure.
"Who's there?"
I called out. The shadowy figure paused. An icy wave of recognition washed over me. Slowly, the silhouette raised its arm, pointing one finger directly at me. Then it turned and fled, fading into the darkness. I stood frozen in place, my knuckles white from clenching onto the candlestick. That menacing figure had looked strangely familiar, almost like a twisted version of my own shadow. A burst of lightning suddenly illuminated the entire hallway. In that split second of light, I saw the truth. At the end of the hall, my shadow stood there against the wall, smiling right at me. I didn't sleep the rest of that night, nor did I sleep peacefully for many nights after that. I became obsessed with monitoring my shadow. I set up cameras and recording devices, trying to capture any strange occurrences. My friends really started looking at me with pity and concern then, but I didn't care if they thought I was losing it. I knew what I saw, and I feared what it meant. One evening, I was reviewing the footage on my cameras when suddenly all the devices glitched out with loud static. Right as they shut off, the power cut out too, plunging my house into darkness. A freezing wind swept through my home even though the windows weren't open. I stumbled to the front door with my cell phone flashlight to check the street lights, but the entire block was dark and silent. My hands shook as I locked the front door and backed away. I had left one candle burning in my office, and I made my way there, using my phone to light the way. Right as I entered the room, a white glow flashed behind me in the hallway. I spun around with a gasp, raising my phone light. Two round eyes stared back at me, the same sinister smile beneath them. The face of my doppelganger shadow hovered in the air, right where my silhouette should have been cast on the wall. We both stood perfectly still in that moment. Then it raised one long spindly arm and beckoned to me. My heart dropped as I realized the truth. Somehow, this demonic shadow version of myself had finally separated from the real me. It had come for the life it felt I had stolen from it all these years. I shook my head in despair and stumbled back into my office, slamming the door shut between me and the monster. My phone flashlight dimmed and sputtered out, leaving just the candle lighting the small room. Frantically, I looked around for an escape route or weapon, finding nothing. Heavy footsteps crept closer from the hallway until they were right outside the thin wooden door. The doorknob turned with a squeak. As the door opened, I had nowhere to hide. My shadow stretched along the floor, shifting from my silhouette into a tall, slim creature covered in darkness. It loomed over me with a wide, ominous smile. I glanced over my shoulder. There was no shadow behind me in the candlelight, yet the creature stood right in front. Deep down, I'd always known this day would come. My mother had tried to warn me when I was young. The candle flickered out, leaving me in darkness with the monster inches away. I remembered my mother's warning from when I was young. Always check for your shadow, sweetie.